Hi, this is Regina Y. Favors with Pre-Singles Counseling. This is part of my Pre-Singles Counseling Coaching Curriculum, where I design lessons and case studies based in the psychology literature on different topics. This Pre-Singles Counseling is targeted to three types of individuals. The first individual is a person who is interested in becoming single. That means that person is not necessarily interested in dating or entering the marriage market. The second individual is a single individual who is interested in entering the dating market. And then the last individual is a single dating individual who is interested in marriage. So take some time to listen to this lesson and or case study. Please leave a comment and I will reply. In addition, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the notification bell if you are interested in further topics. This is Pre-Singles Counseling, a Pre-Singles Counseling Coaching Curriculum. Thank you for visiting the channel. This lesson is subject to fair use, where I will comment, criticize, offer research, as well as teach and provide scholarship. Single women should be knowledgeable about mate value and mate preferences, as potential male partners focus on physical attractiveness as an attribute of a high value mate partner. Status is desirable to men. Although you may perceive yourself as having high mate value, social perception dictates that low mate value partners are typically abandoned for higher mate value partners. Partners often determine mate value based on mate preferences and are less likely to retain a partner if they find her replaceable. What is pre-singles counseling? Pre-singles counseling is based in a decision to enter or exit singleness. Pre-singles is the time period between single and contemplation of dating. There is a difference between being a single individual and being a single individual who has entered the dating market, which includes the sex market. Pre-singles counseling reflects the processes by which an individual researches, learns, and plans to navigate life, either as a single, a dating single, or a single interested in marriage. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to do the following: define mate value based on high or low mate value ideals, define mate preference, define mate replaceability, determine how mate value affects relationship satisfaction, answer why people abandon romantic partners, set their mate value, whether based on self-perception or social perception. So here are some pre-discussion questions. Do you know your mate value? Do you know your mating preferences? Have you ever been abandoned in a relationship? And if you had the option to design a mate, would you? So let's look at mate value, the difference between self-perception versus social perception. The way we perceive ourselves might be a lot different than the way society perceives us. And especially in the dating market, you might consider yourself high value, but based on physical attractiveness, you may be average. You may be low value to a prospective partner. So let's look at mate value. So what is mate value? Mate value is essentially the perception of one's own mate value in contrast to the mate value of available partners. It reflects a comparison between a person's characteristics and characteristics valued by potential opposite sex partners. So is your self-perception of your own mate value, but that self-perception is also in contrast to your sort of social perception of a competing partner. So you as a woman, you are in a group with other women and you're all friends, and you all of you might think of yourselves as, a dime piece or 10, or at least 9, 10. But when you are all confronted with a prospective potential opposite sex partner, it's interesting how your attitude towards each other begins to change. One of you, or more of you, or all of you believe you are much more physically attractive when you are considering that prospective partner. So then you begin to derogate the other partners as if they are not as physically attractive. And you could all be considered socially perceived as 10s. But once that opposite sex partner steps on the scene, it seems like a fight ensues between all of the women who are all physically attractive, and then they begin to compare themselves. So mate value can be both self-perceived based upon how you think of yourself, socially perceived based upon how others think of yourself, but you can also take into consideration you socially perceiving a potential competitor for a prospective mate. Mate value determines mate replaceability and mate retention behavior. So if you continue to sustain a high mate value status, it is less likely that you will be replaceable, or it is less likely that your mate will replace you with maybe a backup mate or just another potential partner. So then if you tend to be high value, or you tend to have a good mate value, then that will determine how long your partner retains you as a mate. Mate value will determine mate preference fulfillment and whether mate preferences influence relationship satisfaction. So it just can't be physical attractiveness unless physical attractiveness is used to sort of garner a certain level of praise, maybe. So if you are a wealthy businessman and you have a trophy wife, right? And that trophy wife still looks good after so many years, you will say to yourself, well, she's good to keep around. I'm going to keep her. I'm going to retain her. But then there are other women who look like her, and they are growing in higher status, meaning that they might be increasing or improving in access to financial resources. Then now we have some competition, and now we have a romantic partner comparing his current mate with the prospective mate. So then the next level of assessment would be, do I continually feel satisfied in this relationship? And it could be about sex, it could be about increasing the network, increasing net worth. It can be a number of things that the main partner determines whether you are replaceable or whether you are to be retained, and whether you continually increase relationship satisfaction. So for homework, I want you to research any article on mate value using the phrase as a key search term. So you will be able to find a number of articles, and I'm really talking about journal articles. Read the articles you find, jot down any special ideas that you support or that concern you. Reflect on these ideas, your perception of you, and how mate value may impact your decisions and the decisions of a potential mate. Do you think you are likely or less likely to obtain your ideal mate? And in this current environment, this dating environment, there's really a lack of standards. So ideal mate is going to be almost relative. It may be attainable, it may not be attainable, but it just depends on what you are willing to put up with, what you are willing to deal with, how you might have to change, how the other person might have to change, if there's any sort of willingness to retain each other. So let's look at mate preference in terms of choice. So mate preference will determine who a person chooses and how much that choice has an impact on their own health, status, resources, and number and quality of offspring. And so women often choose men based upon their good genes. So they are always go after the higher value male, mainly because of access to, financial resources, of course. But they also want a certain look for their offspring, their issue, their child. So they will always pick the one who is what we might call, quote unquote, a pretty boy, right? And then if they can't marry the high value man, they will end up marrying a man who is lower than the high value man. And he doesn't have to have a lower mate value in a sense. He can still be someone who is also physically attractive, but he's not sort of like the alpha male. So mate preference will determine who you choose in terms of your the impact on their own health, status, resources, number, and quality of offspring. Status is very important, access to resources and being able to sustain that. If a person has the idea with the life mantra that I only marry rich men, I only date rich men, rather. Okay, then the man could never lose his money. Because if she's going to date that person, it is probable that she's going to want to marry him too. So he has to sustain that resource, that financial resource, and then of course status in terms of class level, right? Health might be an issue, as long as he has some money, that's fine. But if he doesn't have any money, and it might be due to health, the person might leave. It just depends. So people get very stuck in their mate preference, and they might ignore a lot of things, a lot of other issues if that mate preference change or any aspect of the mate preference changes. Mate preferences function to motivate people to pursue fitness promoting mates. However, our ability to acquire these mates depends on numerous factors, including ideal mates existing in the local environment, ideal mates being available to mate, and ideal mates being reciprocally attracted to those who choose them. So the ideal mate has to be available. And I'm not saying a married man as an ideal mate. I'm saying that whoever you want to marry is not attached to someone else. Regardless of what is trending now in terms of open marriages, you still cannot marry that married man under the law until that married man divorces. So you can make any sort of decision that you want in terms of your attitude towards choosing a married man and thinking that it is an open relationship, but you won't have access to his resources unless you get pregnant. You won't have access to his resources unless you are actually married to him. And so the wife would always take priority in that case. So there has to be an ideal mate in the local environment, whatever environment that is. That ideal mate has to be available. And the ideal mate has to have some sort of reciprocal attraction to you. Just because he might be ideal to you doesn't mean that you are ideal to him. So mate preference is also based upon how they look at you, how they view you, how they rank you, how they assess you. It is possible to end up with a mate who does not satisfy your ideal mate preferences. Gender differences in mate preference suggest that men prefer attractiveness in female mates and women prefer a male mate to have resources. So, like I said, with the alpha male, sometimes I think about this. I don't think everybody just really wants to marry an alpha male or a high value male. I think it's one of those things that everyone is just competing in the dating market and looking for a win. They don't want to look like a loser. But I don't think you just grow up saying, I want to marry a high value man. You know, sometimes you might be moved by the idea that he has money, he has access to resources, he has access to a network, he is a celebrity. There's a number of factors. But there's a lot that you have to do to prepare yourself to become an ideal mate for your ideal mate. So sometimes it is possible that you don't end up with your ideal mate. There are a number of factors because if that ideal mate is your ideal mate, then he's looking for someone who looks just like him. And a lot of times when we are attempting to choose an ideal mate, we look nothing like what we should look like if we want to operate and compete at that level. You know, when I think about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, when you look at some of her pictures, honestly, to me, she looked average. She's a pretty girl, but you look at a lot of her pictures when she was in high school and then college, and then when she was a girl on Deal No Deal, and then she was an actress on Suits. Suits is where she started to improve, to me, in my thinking. But prior to that, she was kind of average looking, just a regular girl to me. And Suits is when she started dressing different, and of course it was the character who started, looking a certain kind of way. But she was a looker then. But it wasn't until she started to change her eating habits, her diet. She did yoga. She got a stylist. She started changing her hair, things like that, that she looked like an ideal mate by the time she met Prince Harry. But the woman that you see today, it was not the woman that you see in those pictures that even looked remotely like what she looks today. So he is an ideal mate. I mean, everybody wants a prince, I guess. I don't think so, but if you could marry a prince, of course. But there was a lot of work, and I'm not quite sure if she knew that she was going to marry him. In her lifespan, it was a friend who introduced her to him. And there was a lot that she had to do to come up to that level, to think on that level. That's a whole different level. And there's a lot more I want to say about that, and I might do that in another video. But Prince Harry is an ideal mate for many women, but not many women can operate on that level. And so how you see your ideal mate and how your ideal mate sees you may be two different things, but I do know that if that's your ideal mate, you're going to have to make changes to operate at that level. Again, gender differences in mate preference suggest that men prefer attractiveness in female mates and women prefer a male mate to have resources. So women will always choose the financial resources aspect of the relationship because we always believed, despite our independent thinking, that the man should cover us in the relationship, especially in marriage. He should make more money. Even if we go out and make more money, we still want that aspect of a provider and a provider mentality. So we will always go for the resources. We will stick with a low mate value man just because of his resources. But men oftentimes do prefer physical attractiveness, and I believe they're vain. That's just my bias, that they base their choices, their mate preferences, off strictly physical attractiveness. Sure, they say, oh, I hope we have good conversation and we can talk and we can be friends. I don't really believe that, because that might go for being in the house with you two just, hanging out with each other in the house. But once he steps out of that house, he wants a trophy on his arms. He wants a certain look, because it looks like it feeds into his ego, and it looks like he's a winner. And an average looking woman, he's not going to feel like a winner. And that's why I feel like most men tend to choose the global beauty standard, which is considered the white woman, blonde, blue eyed, very, Barbie doll like, skinny. They choose that global beauty standard because they feel like whether she's having a good day or a bad day, she's going to always be preferred to the men in the mating market. So it's preferred over any other woman or race of woman or ethnicity. Then they always feel like it is a perpetual win, and she can let herself go, just completely let herself go and not look like the same woman she looked like even 5 years ago. But she's considered the global beauty standard, and because of that, and it's a perpetual thing. That's something that I think that's going to outlast our lifetime, because that's the way she is socialized. That's the way society socializes. She uses her whiteness as currency, and so, and she is always perceived as attractive over any other woman. So men will always choose the global beauty standard due to attractiveness. In a recent study, the results of a mate design task favored in potential mates friendliness, interesting personality, and attractiveness as necessities within a mating situation. So, of course, when it comes to mating, you're trying to get to know the person, and no one wants to date someone with an attitude. Personality does matter, if you click with each other, right? That influences mate value as well. And then, of course, attractiveness, right? Intelligence was also considered a necessity. Now, that's where I feel like I tend to focus on, because I'm looking for conversation. I'm sure I might find my mate value. I might choose a certain type of person, things like that. But I can't be bored intellectually with a person. Sure, I'm going to want some, sexual variety or something like that in a marriage context. I don't want it to be boring all the time. But being able to talk to somebody, it's very, very important for me. I don't want to. I don't want it to feel like I'm pulling teeth to try to get somebody to talk. It's important that the person has a worldview, that they know more than the four corners of their neighborhood. They don't necessarily have to be a world traveler, because I haven't ventured out of America yet. But I do have a passport, and I'm looking to um, to visit certain countries, right? But the most important thing is that you just can't be dumb on certain issues. You don't necessarily have to take a position and stick to it. You can kind of waver a little bit, right? But you have to have something. At least talk history, talk the American Revolution or something like that. But not just simply, I don't know, I guess that's cool. Yeah, that's all right. I can't live like that. My soul needs that kind of conversation, that talking to, and I need to be able to interact in that way. I'm a teacher. So as teachers, we talk. We are always talking. We're always assessing. We're always critically thinking. And so I think intelligence does matter. Because mate value will guide how we design a mate, knowledge of one's own perceived mate value should also be just as significant a factor. So if usually when we're thinking about designing a mate, we're thinking about almost projecting our own insecurities, really, when you think about it, because in many cases, why can't you just let somebody be who they are? You know, um, um, if they have a job and they've been on that job for so many years, should it matter that it's a six-figure job? However, if you are making six figures, I think you should choose someone who is making six figures or more, because there will come a time and I'm going to discuss it in a few more slides, that the partner, to ensure that they retain you as a partner, will begin to employ conflict inflicting mate retention behavior. So they'll, get into their emotions and start accusing you, of cheating on them. They might insult you. They might do a number of things to sort of keep you in a relationship. But the designing a mate is very interesting because, before you even think about trying to design someone else, have you designed yourself? And it's always based upon your own perceived mate value. So it's interesting how some women who are very high level, maybe celebrity women, they are always accused of dating down. And I think what they do is they try to date down because it's hard to date up. And they try to date down to make the man a project. And then they kind of give him a job to be like a manager over them. And it sort of makes them useful. But I think if you're already up at that level, I think you need to continue to look up, because the person does not have the same work ethic that led to you going up. And so they will always be offended about how you move in certain types of environments, because there's always going to be an insecurity. They don't have the work ethic to match your own hustle. And so they will always feel like they are lower than you. But if you pick someone much higher, you know that they have the work ethic, they have the ability to navigate that level. Fundamentally, individuals who are higher in mate value can be more demanding in the traits required of a potential mate, as they are able to obtain a mate with these higher level of traits. So you should, I think, date up. We call it hypergamy, but you should date up, because, and that should be a demand you place on yourself. See, when you date down, you almost have pity for the person, and they can feel it, and then you find yourself trying to make them a project. And again, no one likes to feel like a project. So you should, they may not necessarily, say for instance, you find one who is the exception to the rule. They don't have the same celebrity status, but they have managed a business, right? Or had a business of their own. They are entrepreneurial, and they have been able to sustain their business for many years, even prior to meeting you. Well, that might be a little different, because at least they have a mindset, a business mindset. They know how to navigate circles, right? They might be helping you just as much as you are helping them. They come with some kind of value proposition. Whereas you date someone from your past, some old high school sweetheart, and he's been working at just a regular job. Nothing wrong with a regular job, because at least he knows how to keep a job. He may not care too much about that environment in which you navigate. And it might be something that turns him off. And every time you turn around, there's always an argument between you two. It's not necessarily that he doesn't want to work or do anything like that. It's just that he doesn't care about that kind of environment. So it's something that you really have to think about when you are considering a potential mate. Do they think like you? Does the person understand the industry? You have all these mates who want especially women who want a financial provider in a mate, but then the woman complains about him working all the time. Okay, wait, okay, so how do you think you have the life that you have? How do you think you have the house that you have, the car that you have, the bank account that you have? He has to work. You're not working yourself. So it doesn't make any sense for you to complain about him working, as if you are living in some sort of fantasy land, and you think he basically should just live off an inheritance. He doesn't have it like that. He has to work those 12, 14, 16, 18 hours a day just to maintain the lifestyle that you get to enjoy more than he does. every day. So uh, making demands of certain traits of of a particular of a particular potential mate um, will come with some sort of consequence, because the man who wants a trophy wife is also a wife who's complaining, and she wants actually the relationship with him too, but he's always working, or he might not be working. It just depends on what is going on. Mate preference is predicated on one's perceived mate value. So physical attractiveness is a reflection of high mate value. This means that if a person perceives that he or she is physically attractive and by default high mate value, then the person would prefer mates who reflect the same. So you don't see. The one thing I would like to say about the Kardashians, and I don't necessarily, agree with their um, personas. But as Kim moved up, she moved up from a lower status man who was high status in his time to Reggie Bush, then to Ray J, then to Chris Humphries, I think, and then to Kanye West, right? Well, each time she moved up in value. So that then each person that she got with sort of increased her mate value. So I'm not saying that everyone will date her, but she does have, in terms of social perception and physical attractiveness, she does have high mate value. So then whoever uh, Kanye West moved up in value as he continued to work with, different artists, as he continued to put albums out, and he toured, and he elevated himself. And I think it's more self-perceived elevation, but he still elevated himself. So then two high mate value people come together and they are perceived as high mate value. Now, it's still relative. They're not necessarily Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, right? They're not Warren Buffett and his wife, or Jeff Bezos and his wife, or any other sort of higher mate value individuals. But they do, in our society, represent a level of high mate value. Men who perceive themselves in terms of higher mate value tend to be more selective than their women counterparts, or higher value women. Men who believed that they were of high mate value were more likely than lower mate value men to prefer to marry at a younger age, to have a spouse who was younger than them, and to have a partner who was sociable, ambitious, high in social status, with good financial prospects, a desire for children, health, good looks, and mutual attraction. And this is men. That's a lot to ask. First, they want them young, right? They want them young, right? Or they married them young. But the most important part is that the woman has to play a role. That role, she has to be, high society. Ambitious is not necessarily career driven. Most high value men want a woman who is not necessarily ambitious. Ambition might be maybe um, entertaining, creating a home where the husband can bring a business associate, business rival, and it might contribute to his ambition. I don't think that most men want a woman who is ambitious. High in social status, then with good financial prospects. I think a lot of that actually means when the woman comes from a good name. So a man will marry a woman. Say, for instance, the woman is the daughter of an NFL owner. Okay, and then the ambition would be to, grow the brand or something like that. Then that's more tolerable than she wanting to become just ambitious apart from the man, to the point that it hurts the relationship, unless they both work in the same industries. Say, for instance, they are political commentators or something like that, or political historians. They are academics. Well, they are working within the same environments, industries, brands, exactly, etc. So you have partners who have made it up the academic career ladder. They're both professors, chairs of departments, or something like that. That's a little different. But for you to operate apart from your husband completely, that's when it becomes a bigger issue. The daughter of an NFL player, she comes with great financial prospects because she's part owner of the team, and there's high investment, there's high mate value there, and she can look average looking for that high value man. But she's part owner of a team. She has an existing network, and so there may be mutual attraction because the high value man, could be an owner of something, not necessarily an NFL team, but a business owner of something. Attraction for me is not always just physical attractiveness. You could have another type of mutual attraction, a mutual attraction of ideals and thinking and belief systems, right? That you are rulers in your own respective domains. So then he might be attracted to her because she's a ruler in her domain and he's a ruler in his own domain. Now, I'm not saying she needs to let her looks go, because people still care about, good looks or how you carry yourself. They care about confidence. And so all of that is still important. But I believe in this regard that good financial prospects make you seem even higher mate value, have a higher mate value than even just a mere younger trophy wife who comes with nothing but body. So here's a knowledge check. What is mate preference? Do you believe you are socially perceived as high or low mate value? Does your ideal mate reflect high or low mate value? And is there some bias in your mate preference? And the thing about it is, there are a lot of celebrities that we tend to really like and we believe we are attracted to. So we love to call on, Denzel Washington, somebody, or, Samuel Jackson. Now the going trend is trying to marry Laz Alonso. And it's interesting that you think in your mind, in your fantasy, that you can get that person. And in some regards, you may be able to get that person. The problem is, though, you still don't know who that person is, because what they are presenting to you is a persona. They might slip up and show you the real them, right? But a lot of times they are putting on a face. Just because they act in films does not necessarily mean they don't act in real life, because they know they can't really yell at you as a customer or as a fan. So they shake your hand, they do the autographing or something like, autographing, right? But they might be a completely different person at home. So you're basing your ideal mate off some sort of persona, but you don't really know who your ideal mate is until you know yourself. And so, thinking about bias in your mate preference, why are you choosing to look at one person as an ideal mate versus another person as an ideal mate? So mate replaceability when you abandon. So abandonment and alternatives. Let's discuss this concept. Mate replaceability is defined as abandoning a partner who does not fit one's mate preferences. So I don't know if we are already talking about abandonment, somewhere that person fit your preferences, or you just decided to take that person on to fill time. So here it is. You want somebody, the person that you really want is not available right now, or you don't know who that person is just yet until it just hits you. So you'll just take somebody to fill the time, to give you sex, maybe be a little bit of a false wife to you or something like that. And then you get into that relationship. They're really not your mate preference. They might be close to it because you just don't date everybody. But somehow you have come across the person that you know you're going to marry, or you would rather date. And so now you are replacing one mate with another. I always wonder, I never understand how people can stay together for 25 years and then divorce. Can stay together. I even go as lower as 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20. But let's even go as low as 5. So when you got married, you didn't plan to stay. So then why did you get married? Why would you marry somebody? Why would you divorce somebody in 5 years? So that tells me that person wasn't the person that you really wanted, and that the real person you really wanted was not available, was already married or going to school or something like that, and the person wasn't coming around. And so now years have passed and the person has decided to come around. So now you're going to abandon the mate that you've been with for 5 years and go on and live with somebody. Um, go on and be with the person that you really want to be with, your real true mate preference. It reminds me of the people, the celebrities, and I've talked about this in a previous audio, that as long as they were trying to reach to get somewhere before they became famous, they kept that wife, they kept that husband. But then as soon as success, that meaning that somehow that one role was the one role that pushed them further into the spotlight, that they were able to gain success from it and sustain that success through a number of additional parts. Now all of a sudden that woman that you were with for 10 years, who was quote unquote holding you down and being a wife to you, you don't want her anymore. You're now going to replace her. Somehow, all of a sudden, she no longer fits your mate preference, and you're going to marry the person that you really want to be with. Well, really, she was never your mate preference then. If a mate is replaceable, to me, in my mind, if a mate is replaceable, that means that mate was never your mate preference. And that's something I think I want to consider thinking about, because I always wonder why people who are married step out of the marriage to commit infidelity. That, okay, why did you get married? I understand logically where there's somebody at the house, and every time I want to come home to the house, there's a wife there's a home, she's a wife to me, etc., right? But there's this need I have to go out and have sex with somebody else. Okay, then why didn't you just marry the person that you want to have sex with? I honestly just don't understand it, but I do get the convenience aspect of it. I can just go on ahead and marry her for right now, so that I can make sure that I can have continued access to sex and any other type of resource. But when the real one comes along, I'm going to leave her and go marry somebody else. Abandonment is predicated on a current partner's mate value, so whether high or low. Abandonment of a partner might be unproductive if an alternative is an even poor fit. However, an alternative mate higher in mate value might be more selective in mate choice and lured by mate poachers. So let's take the second one for a minute. So abandonment of a partner might be unproductive if an alternative is an even poor fit. So that means that the wife, so if you look at the man who's married and then he steps out and has sex, so that means that the wife still must have a higher mate value status because he's keeping her, right? So that the person who is the mistress, who might be an alternative, is actually a poor fit, because if that person is truly the one that he wants to be with, then he would go ahead and divorce the wife and then marry the mistress. No, she must not be of a high mate value status. The wife must come from a name, come from some access to resources. Um, you know, she might come from a inheritance or something like that. And so it's very difficult to just completely divorce her, because through her he has been able to rise up the ranks, right? Um, an alternative mate higher in mate value might be more selective in mate choice and lured by mate poachers. So if the wife was a higher mate value, or since she is, um, it would, if she's so committed to the husband who's the cheater, then it might result in poor self-esteem issues, and she may not look externally for another mate unless uh, a potential mate decided to appeal to her. And that's hardly the case. So usually if something like that happens, the person has to be at a level where she maybe has a spotlight, and where men are likely to approach her. And so then that's when the husband might actually have a problem and fear of a mate poacher. So only in that particular case could that happen. But as long as he's messing with her self-esteem, she's not going anywhere. This means that a partner would be less likely to employ cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors out of fear of being unable to replace the partner and out of fear of losing the partner altogether. So if you look at the daughter of an NFL player, that's going to be hard to replace. So first of all, he's going to make sure that he looks good in front of her father. He's just going to make sure of it, because otherwise it could affect, especially if he has a job with the team, and especially if he is an assistant coach or general manager or any type of a administrative position. He's going to lose money, his own money potential. He's going to lose access to the daughter, meaning that she could choose to divorce him, and he's going to lose access to that whole network with the NFL, right? So he will be afraid to sort of abuse her emotionally, hit on her, or something like that, in using cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors, because she has options. Even if she, in this case with the NFL daughter, even if she had self-esteem issues, she still higher mate value that if she took a risk in divorcing him, that's a good risk for her, because she still has a lot more to offer to any potential partner. He would be the one, the husband would be the one who would not have access to her or to her father or to the network. Similarly, a man partner to a woman of lower mate value may be able to replace his partner more easily, and therefore may be more willing to risk losing her by engaging in high-risk, cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors. So only if he found another daughter of an NFL team would he be maybe more willing to risk losing the current wife that he has. But that would look messy, you know. It looks even more messy, and then they might, all of the men, both NFL owners, might decide to just kick him out of the league altogether. So it's very difficult to employ cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors when the woman is of higher mate value. Men have a stake in ensuring that female partners do not defect, and will allocate efforts towards mate retention. So defect means to abandon the relationship. So too many times a daughter of an NFL owner talking with her father about her husband cheating, that's going to pose a problem. And if he continues to cheat, that's going to create an issue for him to be able to retain that mate. So he's going to put on the face that the celebrity puts on. He's going to act a part that the celebrity acts, because he's going to do whatever he has to do to allocate any effort towards mate retention for that particular high value mate. So for homework, I want you to think about these questions. Have you ever been replaced by a mate? What was your first decision after the mate abandoned you in the relationship? Have you repeated that decision in other encounters and or relationships? So journal what it feels like to be romantically abandoned from a partner. So I had this issue. I had an issue with this. My ex just couldn't leave his ex alone. The ex did not want him, did not want to marry him, wouldn't even tell him where he lived, but he was so tied to her in his soul that he just couldn't leave her alone. So I ended up having to let him go and kick him out. But he basically abandoned me emotionally and financially much earlier in the relationship. And I venture to guess really that he never really preferred me. That he always preferred her, and that she was just acting up and wouldn't come around. And so he chose me until she decided that she came around. Now today he's not even married to her. He's married to somebody else. But it was his process that I stumbled into, and that relationship is the biggest regret of my life. And I don't do a lot of regretting, but that one right there, because it was a time waster. I was never preferred the whole time. And so at least when you are preferred as a mate, and the relationship runs into troubles, okay, well, it's just a relationship that is running into trouble, but we at least still want to be with each other. So my first decision after he abandoned me was to begin writing. I started to write from a place of pain. And one day I just pulled my laptop, opened a Word document, and just sort of wrote out a narrative of how things went down with that situation. And then I printed it out and I looked at it and I said, there's something here with this. And so I started to separate what looked like parts that could go into, separate areas, or, paragraphs or something like that, or sections. And then those parts turned into chapters. And so then I started to work on the chapters individually, and I was researching concepts, rebounding. I found a lot of journal articles on rebound relationships, and then those articles had a bibliography, and I started to research and review those articles to the point that it became a book. And the original book title, as I noted at the end, was Bait, Hook, and Switch: Confessions of a Rebound Girl. And I got the title really from a discussion that Steve Harvey was talking about how men bait you, right, how they hook you, and I added the switch to it. And I was going to keep it as that title, but then I needed to update the book, and I realized that the book was largely about toxic encounters, how you get into toxic relationships. So then I decided to change the title to Toxic Encounters: Why People Pursue Rebound Relationships. So that's how I was able to channel my pain. And then from the book, I was able to create these individual audios. So using the same journal articles, some concepts from my books as well. And here you go, a whole series. And I've changed and updated the series over time, but it gives you an idea of how I was able to channel that hurt and pain of being romantically abandoned into a book, into series, into other different products, avenues, etc. So that's what I want you to think about. So let's get into relationship satisfaction, mate value versus mate preference. So how does mate preference affect relationship satisfaction? So I did go over this a little briefly in previous slides, but it is important that your preference has a great influence on the relationship satisfaction, because that's why I think a lot of people are just choosing not to marry and choosing just to maybe bed hop, choosing dating rotations, choosing different other options, open relationships, because they might be afraid that if they made the choice, the person might not live up to all the hype. And so mate preference does play a significant role in how it affects relationship satisfaction. So in an existing relationship, people who are mated to higher value partners would find it very difficult to replace such partners because abandonment would be less productive. So if you already have a higher mate value partner, I mean, who would divorce Jeff Bezos? Now, Jeff Bezos was found cheating, and so he wants to now be with some new partner, right? Uh, so so he likely initiated the divorce, or the wife was forced to initiate the divorce because he wants to be with this new woman. But they had been together for many years, way before he became Jeff Bezos. So she wasn't looking to divorce him. It didn't make any sense. He was a high value partner, maybe not in the beginning, but he sort of converted to that. It would have been less productive. Now she has been productive. His ex-wife has been more productive as a result of being divorced from him, and that's because he was forced to give over a great percentage of his wealth, and she's giving over a lot of money to historically black colleges and other philanthropic um, strategies organizations. But basically, usually if you are mated already to a high value partner, it's like, why would Paula Washington divorce her husband Denzel Washington? I mean, he's Denzel Washington and he's always been very good to his wife. He said that. But it wouldn't make any sense. He's Denzel Washington. The same thing with Samuel L. Jackson's wife. Why would she divorce him? So usually if you already made it to a higher value mate partner, you're not going to romantically abandon them, because it doesn't make any sense. It will be less productive. Their relationship satisfaction increases regardless of an existing pool of alternatives. So I'm quite sure that Samuel L. Jackson, Denzel Washington, other types of celebrities or other types of business people, Mark Cuban, anybody, I'm quite sure there are an existing pool of alternatives. There are many, 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 many women who would love to be married to those men. You can say that also of any higher level celebrity woman. Many men would love to be married to them, but it doesn't make any sense to let go of the one you're already with. Participants made it to relative low value mates were satisfied only if they would be unable to find more suitable alternative mates. So even if you have a lot of people who are physically attractive, they may not still have the same mindset. They may not have the same mindset because you are going to get older. And you don't want someone in the house with you who has no worldview, who has no sense about things, that the only thing they want to do is look pretty. They can't have an intellectual conversation with you. You don't have to have necessarily a high Q, but you should be able to critically think. And so so the partners that you see that are still with some of these celebrities, right? That mate is still suitable. George Clooney, I remember George Clooney saying after a divorce that he would never marry ever again. Never marry. But then he came across this other woman, and her name slips me right now. It's on the tip of my tongue. And I think she's an attorney or something. and it's for, I forget the name of the organization, but it's a big name organization. And somehow in being with her, he changed his mind. And I believe he meant it when he said he would never marry someone, but he found a mate, a higher value mate, that he could have an intellectual conversation, who improved him. And he's George Clooney, but he felt like that woman improved him, influenced him. So therefore, there's no sense in finding an alternative mate, because he finds he has great relationship satisfaction with the woman he is now married to. So how does relationship satisfaction influence mate retention behaviors? So within relationships, people mated to high value mates are satisfied regardless of whether their partners matched their preferences. So maybe the attitude, because the person is already a higher value mate, your attitude changes. It just, even if the person is not everything that you thought the person should be, the fact that the person is a higher mate value just changes your thinking altogether, because you're not going to let go of a person who is basically higher mate value. Participants with mates lower in mate value were satisfied only if their actual mate satisfied their mate preferences better than their alternative mate. So as long as the current mate is a mate that still satisfies certain mate preferences. Mate preferences could be that the person needs to have an education. Some people want people with a college degree. There is, I prefer it honestly because I have a college degree and I've been exposed to a sort of higher level thinking. But there might be an exception to a rule too. I'm not quite sure I want to deal with someone who didn't complete college, who might have started but didn't complete, because that says a lot about your ability to finish something. And whatever college level, it doesn't really matter. It can be community college level and you got a 2-year associate's degree, or the 4-year university and you just got a bachelor's degree. That's fine. But I do think on some level it matters because of the kind of worldview that we have when we engage in that type of academic environment. So mate preferences are all relative, but it could be a person who is skinny. Some men prefer someone who is skinny. Some men prefer someone who is athletic. Some men prefer someone who can hang a bathing suit. I mean, really look wonderful in a bathing suit, no fat, nothing. Some men prefer a woman who can birth more than one child. Some men prefer a woman who wants to stay at home and be a stay-at-home mother and just support the family dynamic. So mate preferences, once you step out of their mate preferences, it makes it easier for that partner to start searching for an alternative mate. How does relationship satisfaction influence mate retention behavior? So within relationships, mate retention behaviors are typically benefit provisioning or cost inflicting to prevent infidelity and or partner defection from the relationship. So when it comes to benefit provisioning, we're talking about compliments, gifts, expendable resources, right? So, but whatever you give your mate, okay. Cost inflicting or includes sexual jealousy. You limit your partner's social contacts. And these are the two types of strategies that people will use to retain or to continue keeping you as a mate. You know, benefit provisioning can have a negative connotation too, especially within an abusive context. So, how many times have you seen an abuser hit the wife, leave the house, get air, something like that, and bring flowers? or compliment, throw a half-handed compliment and then turn around and hit her again. So, and that person could still be a, financial provider as well. So that's something that I haven't delved into in terms of researching the psychology scholarship on this, but it's something that I'm going to consider as of this particular audio. And then cost inflicting is obvious. We would call it cost inflicting if he's hitting the wife to retain her, right? But I also like to look at the idea that he's still bringing her a gift to also retain her. But these are your two mate retention behaviors, and we are going to discuss them. So have you ever felt like the compliments you pay someone or the gifts you buy them affects your relationship satisfaction with the individual? And I think when I ask that question, I'm thinking about, are you doing it from a place of health, of good wisdom, understanding, right? You're not trying to people please the person. You're not trying to keep them from leaving, that you're just doing it because you love them versus paying compliments because it's what they want to hear, right? That affects your relationship satisfaction with yourself as well as the individual. Have you ever used cost inflicting behaviors such as jealousy to prevent a partner from leaving the relationship? So I often realize that some people don't want to solve the problems in the relationship. What they want to do is do this sort of going back and forth and stalling. And they know their partner is not the type of partner who cheats. There are some people in this world who do not have a mindset of cheating. It doesn't matter who is put before them, who they go before. They're just not the type to cheat. But then you might get an insecure woman with a man who is a good man and who's not going to cheat. And she's going to always throw out these questions or these accusations that suggest that she believes he's cheating. Well, that probably goes back to projecting. She might want to cheat, or she might be cheating herself. And so she wants to always keep an arm's length on that good man while she continues to cultivate a backup mate. And it might have a lot to do with her damaged worldview, and the home environment that she was brought up in. There might be a number of factors why she is doing that within this context. But people do use cost-inflicting behaviors to prevent the partner from leaving the relationship. Journal what you would do differently if your partner decides to leave or abandon the relationship he has with you. And I don't know what the time frame is. Some people can leave within a month, some people can leave within a year, some people can leave in 5 years. But that does speak to investment. And I don't know how jaded you have to be to not care, but I do think on some level people care about when someone leaves. And so that's something that I want you to think about. So as we conclude, let's look at high-low mate value. Relative mate value will guide mating preferences and mating strategies. And again, your mate value is based upon your social perception, your individual perception or self-perception, and the social perception. So you may think you are a 10, but someone might see you as 7, 8. Okay? Physical attractiveness is an important component for female mate value. High mate value women often prefer higher value males to possess investment abilities such as earning potential, college education, good genes, and parenting indicator. And that's because they want to reproduce. They want to reproduce what they look like, especially if you come together and you produce a child that is even more beautiful, right? They want to make sure that they are able to reproduce and then further reproduce after their own kind. High value males prefer facial attractiveness and high value females. Low mate value male partners are more inclined to guard their female partners aggressively to prevent partner defection and mate poaching. So you may hear men say, I'm very possessive over my partner, over my woman. They may not use physical abuse or anything like that, but they just tend to they don't want the partner to leave. And if there's a threat of mate poaching, they might express that possessiveness in certain ways. Use of cost-inflicting behaviors improves mate retention. So the more that you sort of accuse your partner of doing something, or insulting your partner, or threatening your partner, you're doing it from a place of fear, of course, of losing the partner, but you're also doing it from a place of assuming the partner is not going to go anywhere. Male mating partners are more choosy in their long-term mating strategies as well as in their mating choice. This means that men more than women will differ in their mating preferences when considering long-term versus short-term mating partners. So when it comes to short-term mating partners, a man can have a dating rotation and it doesn't matter to him. He can pick anyone to like have sex with, or have someone to do wifely duties or something like that. But when it comes to picking a partner for long term, like in a marriage, they will shift their mating preferences based upon a long-term mating strategy, because there's a certain person that they want to marry and live with forever. Higher value partners who rated themselves high value often prefer a partner who also reflects high value. And this is what we call assortative mating. So usually we believe that 10s work better with 10s, 5s work better with 5s, etc. So that's assortative mating. Status is a desirable trait in men. Women are not averse to choosing less attractive men if they come with resources. However, high mate value women prefer to mate with attractive men. Higher status people report more life satisfaction. So I guess that when you think about higher status, is usually because they have a higher, financial, pedigree or something like that. Because, we often say, oh, I just want somebody to love me, things like that. But you don't want somebody to love you and you both are poor either. That finances, money is a great predictor of divorce, right? Unless your mate preference, unless you both are like the same people. You got some people who live in a camper, or who live on a farm, who live in a rural area or something like that. Well, as long as you find a person who thinks the same way, who likes that kind of living, you are likely to stay in that relationship, and that person is likely to stay in that relationship as well. But when you have someone who wants a house, a different type of house, a mansion or something like that, and you can't produce in that way for that person, it is higher likely that that person is going to begin thinking about replacing you as a mate, cultivating a backup mate, and seeking a higher value mate to ensure that they can have not only relationship satisfaction, but also life satisfaction. So I want to get into a YouTube discussion about designing a mate. All right, so there are 5 mate preference factors out of 22. And if you could design your mate, which of the following 5 mate preference factors would you consider? So status, physical attractiveness, friendliness, health, family orientation. For me, I don't necessarily have to pick someone based upon physical attractiveness, but because I am 46, financial status does matter. You don't necessarily have to be a millionaire. You don't have to be a baller, but you have to have a job, right? Have some sort of pension, retirement plan. You're not a person who jumps from job to job. All that matters. And I feel like that contributes to health. Family, I don't necessarily have to have kids. I don't have kids. Friendliness is an important thing. Who wants to live with someone who's mean, right? But I am a loner too at the same time. So that person might be a bit of a loner, and then we come together and we talk and we do what married people do or something like that. So I would think at my age, maybe in my 20s, it might have been, physical attractiveness. But at my age now, it would be financial status. So add your comments after this video. You can respond to one or any of the questions. All right, so hopefully you were able to gain insight from this video discussion. Please like, subscribe, and visit. So please like the video, hit the notification bell for more discussions. I am re-uploading all of my audios, so I needed to make some changes to them. You can visit my website for more content at reginayfavors.com. If you want to send me an email, you can send an email reginayfavors@yahoo.com. Please also purchase the book. It's going to come out in spring 2021. So I had to make changes to my book to update it, and I also updated the title. So the original title was Bait, Hook, and Switch: Confessions of a Rebound Girl, and I have updated the title to Toxic Encounters: Why People Pursue Rebound Relationships. So right now I'm still basically editing it, and I want to make it available in spring 2021. So thank you very much for visiting my channel, and I am Regina Y. Favors. Have a great day.